And we can name a lot of the people in this photo. The Ta'i Moa, which is the senior house, the men are sitting in the seats. And the five pule are sitting on the ground. And so the people at the back are Lauaki, and there's Tuemali Ali Ifano, one of the guys in the doorway there, and Mataafa Iosefo asserting paramountcy by actually standing above everyone else. The gentleman on the right, I think, might have been a functionary, a secretary for the gathering. And that's Lauaki on the far right.
Yeah. Hands up. From the reef to the club, let's go. Post a Polynesia twice. We gon' wave at the wave at the wave, let it ride all night. Post a Polynesia.
That's Casper Solf at the talk I gave at Munich, and the lady who digitized the Solf Collection is the woman second from the left, Dr. Hilke Totoro. Yes, that's her. Hilke's fantastic. She's a great student of Samoan.
Just to hearing Tony going through all these photos, it seems like there's so many photos out there that some of the families that used to live in New Zealand, that were German descendant, that actually probably moved back to Germany, that probably still have these photos that need to be captured. I mean, it's just like, it's like a rescuing the lost paradise, that there are some people out there that we know that they still held these photos. And hopefully that through this podcast, that somebody out there, somewhere in Germany or Munich or somewhere, anywhere, that was actually there at the moment or at the time, that still have these photos, that we can actually look at it. And, you know, it's pretty cool, the work that you're doing, Tony. I know I applaud you for doing this, you know, throughout your own time. So I'm just going through the fascinating of the photos that it's been bringing up to life. I mean, I'm pretty sure some of these photos, it takes hours to bring it back to life. So that's I have questions after that.
Sure. Look, this is a photo taken up at Robert Louis Stevenson's museum up at Vailima. Of course, when it was the home of the German governor, and that's him. That's Wilhelm Solf standing there, and that's his wife Joanna. And someone's cracked a joke off camera, and I thought it was a wonderful capture, because she's laughing. She's got her hand over her face laughing, and he's laughing. So I'd love to know what someone off camera had said, but that was a cool shot. And there's some of their Samoan staff, the Fita, who accompanied the German governor from place to place. He actually hired a valet from a German possession in Samoa, and that young man is sitting in the carriage with the Chinese minder for the Solf's little daughter, who they called Samoa e Malilangi. They didn't give her any other name. So she was known throughout her life as Langi Solf, and that's her Chinese amma holding her in the carriage outside the governor residence.
It's fascinating to see and be reminded that our people back then, they were used to wearing shoes.
Absolutely.
So they're barefooted, and I also noticed the calves in their legs, so there was a lot of walking taking place.
Some big calves over there. The guy in the front next to the horse.
Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that, Kalani? Have you? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it looks like it's bigger than the horse.
And that's another shot from the Solf Collection. A really cool shot. And the guy sitting lower right is a gentleman who later went on to have the Mataafa title, and a collection of others on one of the ships. And the German admiral sitting there, sort of in the middle, holding the hand of the Samoan lady. He actually fell in love with her. We've got another photo of him staring longingly at her, with his arm around her and holding her hand. His name was Von Köper, and he seemed to have really fallen in love with this woman whose identity I don't know.
I noticed that there are numbers placed on a few of them. So is it just for labeling who they are?
Yes. Yes, I think Mrs. Solf or Wilhelm Solf, the governor, had written in pencil or something on some of these people and must have indexed them somewhere. You can see in the middle row on the left, a Samoan gentleman with, I think, number 7 written on him, and that was Afamasaga Moa, being able to identify him, who was a translator and a personal assistant to the German governors and an extraordinary administrator, actually. There were 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 Samoans who had very responsible positions in the German administration, and Afamasaga was one of them.
I noticed that the soldier on the top is holding someone's baby.
Yes, that's true. A lot of these photos, the Germans wanted to hold on to the babies because, I mean, it's a pretty restricted life and there's no family life on board these naval ships. So these guys really enjoyed mixing with the locals. And that's Mrs. Solf sitting in the second row with a white blouse on.
Mm.
Mataafa is mostly seen with the same woman every time.
Yeah, well, he got the Mataafa title, this gentleman, in about 1918, so he didn't have it at the time this photo was taken, though he was a senior alii socially, and he was from Fulau.
Is this the same Mataafa Iosefo?
No, it's not. Actually, look, I might have made a mistake. This might be, no, I think he was a Mataafa, that's right. Iosefo died in about 1911, and then there was another person who succeeded to the title, and then this man succeeded to it in about 1918.
That's good to know, so that people are not mixed up with the different identities. You know.
Sure. Now that's not Mataafa Iosefo, but this is. The gentleman on the left, that's Mataafa Iosefo. That's another photo from the Solf Collection. Very cool photo. I think there's been a big gathering at Mulinuu, and he's walking away under the sunshade of an umbrella. Really cool photo.
And everyone is wearing white. Was it just more religious for reasons or for the weather?
Well, formal and religious, I think, also, isn't it? You know, white.
Perhaps in Sunday that they're in, or some sort of an event.
Could be Kalani. Yep. And a lot of photos from village scenes like this one from the Solf Collection, and they took about 4 or 5 photos of this gathering. We don't know where it is. It's a lovely sandy beach. I'm thinking it may be, somewhere on Savai. Maybe at around Whangamoa, and that was taken at the German administration building at Whangamalo, and I think these 2 ladies were helpers for the Solf family, for Mrs. Solf. And we don't know where this was taken. Pretty cool shot. Maybe it was a Sunday, maybe it was a big gathering, and these ladies were going to be called on to do some service or some serving at some point. Only a small proportion of the photos in the Solf Collection have captions, so the role of social media is pretty important in trying to elucidate more information about some of these photos. That's a big gathering. I think maybe the Kaiser's birthday. And that's a cool gathering of mainly German men and their Samoan partners, Samoan wives and their children. We can identify a few of these people. Mr. Netzler on the far left with that black hat, Charles Netzler, and the next photo is a very cool shot from a high position, looking down Beach Road in Apia. That was in the collection. I thought that was really cool. And that's the Fabricius store that we can see with the projecting balcony. But there's so many photos, and here's the German governor coming in on the same day as that previous photo, coming in to be welcomed. I think he'd been in Germany for maybe 6 or 7 months, and all the Samoan Parliament, the Tainua and the Whaipure were there to welcome him.
I have to ask, the way that the photos were taken, it must have been very difficult, like what we talked about, the environment, the surrounding, and, with the humidity. They had to capture in a way where, when they're getting, I don't know, I guess it's called something glass capturing, or?
Well, I mean, all of these photos would have been, a lot of these Solf photos were taken with glass plate negatives, and that is, you don't have a film negative, a roll film, you have a glass plate, which can be of varying sizes, but you can get a lot of detail with glass plates, and it's pretty clear that a lot of the photography in the Solf album, and in lots of albums, were taken with glass plate negatives because you get so much detail. And that was a guy who went on to become a doctor, and his family really enjoyed us putting that photo up. That was one photo that was captioned, and he became a doctor under the New Zealand administration and taken on board one of the German naval vessels.
This guy doesn't have any tattoo on him versus the many men that we see right now.
Yeah, I mean, this guy should have been in Hollywood, I feel. He's a pretty stunning looking guy, isn't he?
This guy's fit.
That's like the perfect picture of physique that most Polynesians want to have or endure nowadays. Instead of having all these chemicals. Now that right there is a fine art of a working man,
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
With real muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just another photo from that's the Mulinuu, the Mulifanua German estate. That's the big coconut plantation.
Yeah, that's the big coconut. Yeah, wow.
And with the donkeys with baskets on their back for picking up coconuts and that. So, yeah. And then look, so that was the Solf Collection, but the Tetens Collection too, which has come out of the woodwork, and with the cooperation of its owners in Germany, Christiani and Herwig Nickerman, the Museum of Samoa now has full access to the 750 images that were taken by the man on the right, Otto Tetens, who was a scientist who came to Samoa to set up the Geophysical Observatory at Mulinuu between 1902 and 1905. And it's pretty clear he was more interested in taking photographs. And virtually all of his photographs were taken on glass plate cameras. So there's wonderful images. And Herwig and Christiani have given us access to the whole collection. Herwig actually digitized the whole collection about 2.5 years ago, and so all of these 750 images are now digitized, and it's just a beautiful collection because Tetens was a wonderful photographer, and just so admiring of that guy. And he later married, he actually dated a few Samoan women. You can tell from his diaries, he's very guarded, but it's pretty clear he's infatuated at various points in time with one or two young Samoan women. But he did end up actually marrying a Palangi woman from Apia who he met, who was the daughter of the American consul, Mr. Heinrod. And he married her a year or two after he left Samoa in Switzerland, and they lived together for the rest of their lives. That was, now look, his collection. Can we go to the next photo, Lausu?
Yes.
This woman on the back of the boat, this is on a lake, Scharmützelsee in Germany. She's the lady who married Tetens, and that's her in her old age. And the Tetens died in the late part of the war, natural causes. In 1945, can we go back to the other photo? In 1945, the Russians come through Germany. They ask Dorothea to leave her house and live in a small cabin behind the house, the Tetens house. And one of the few things she took was these 750 photos in this particular suitcase. And she took it and cared for them. And then when she left Germany to return to America, a year or two later, she gave this suitcase of photos to her niece, Ingeborg, and Ingeborg has given it to her daughter, who is Christiane, who holds them now, and her husband, Christiane's husband, Herwig, has digitized the whole lot. So hats off to both Christiane and Herwig for this wonderful collection.
Just wondering on the boat, was that edited, or the name Apia was on that?
No, no, that was a boat. She and her husband, Otto Tetens, had obviously named it Apia, and so that was probably in the 1940s. Yeah, and that's Christiane, who holds she holds the collection, and her husband Herwig, taken at the same lake actually. I took this photo in 2024 when we stayed at the Tetens house. They've refurbished the Tetens house and they've done a wonderful job, and they love hosting guests from Samoa and New Zealand and Samoan people at the Tetens Villa, which is very close to this lake. And that's Christiane and my wife, Whirnati. And we had a very pleasant couple of nights at the Tetens Villa, which is just up the road from this path.
This is
and that's a shot I took in the evening of it. Lovely house. And look, it was occupied for about 40 years by the Russians. And then Christiane and Herwig were able to get ownership of it back once the Russians left Germany, and they've done a wonderful refurbishment job on the whole, on the structure. It's a beautiful house. It's a lovely position. And that's Tetens on the left and Mataafa Iosefo. Now look, Tetens was, one of the great things about this collection, about Tetens, was that he was setting up the observatory just at 200 meters from where the Samoan Parliament that the Germans had introduced, the Vailima and the Taimua. The Germans had set up this gathering in their own fale at just 200 meters from where Tetens was based. So he formed friendships with all of the high chiefs of Samoa during these years, and we got some wonderful photography. I mean, there are many, many photographs of the people, the women and the ali'i at Mulinuu. And I mean, I've only put up a couple of here in this this gallery here, but this is typical of some of the photos he took. And that's one of Tamasese Lealofi, who was helping Tetens build some traditional fale at Mulinuu. And I love that photo. It's an awesome photo, and holding a sapelu, but I think he was just chopping stuff to help Tetens, but such a great capture. And that was Maliatua Fa'alata, who was another gentleman, ali'i, based at Mulinuu at that time. He was a keen hunter of birds, and that's a manutangi, I think, in the traditional cage that he had. And he took Tetens on a manutangi snaring expedition, which was wonderfully captured by Tetens. I haven't put the photos here, but they're beautiful photos, taken in the bush, I think in Vailima, up behind Apia.
I'm just actually fascinating and amazing with a lot of photos that were captured, especially the way our people, the Polynesian itself, the way they look and how they are, and that's about it. That's just I still have some couple of questions later on, but go ahead, Leah. So I know you got some question for Tony.
So I have two things that I noticed was the white hair, and then the second thing I noticed was the artillery. Is that what it is behind him? Like it seems like military. It's like a where they keep the guns.
No, those are Fale, I think, behind him. That's a Fale in the distance. Or inside. I haven't had a good look at that actually. I'm not sure what that is in there, Leaso. But your first question about the hair, look, something that used to go on right through, I think, Samoan history, right up until the 1930s, was Samoans used to lime their hair with lime, and they would rub it in. And this was both a cosmetic thing to look different and maybe to look pretty trendy. But my view is that liming of hair was also used to disinfect the hair, to kill nits and to kill head lice. And but in lots of photos from this period, and it fades out, I think, in about the 1930s. People used to lime their hair, and they could wash it out eventually. But it was a fashion statement. And look, that's the only photo of the Samoan Parliament that the Germans set up. The Samoan Parliament was actually moved away from Mulinuu in 1905. In 1905, the Germans dispersed the Samoan Parliament back to the villages, and so this was taken, I think, in about 1902-03 by Tetens. And there's no other photo of that gathering. So we're very, very privileged to have the access to the Tetens collection. And we can name a lot of the people in this photo. The Ta'i Mua, which is the senior house, the men are sitting in the seats, and the five pule are sitting on the ground. And so the people at the back are Lauaki, and there's Tuemale Ali Ifano, one of the guys in the doorway there, and Mataafa Iosefo asserting paramountcy by actually standing above everyone else. The gentleman on the right, I think, might have been a functionary, a secretary for the gathering. And that's Lauaki on the far right.
I noticed that Lauaki's in a lot of pictures with Mataafa and his, I don't know if it's his wife or his daughter.
No, she was a niece, I think, and she's in that photo there too. Just below Mataafa. I forget her name offhand, but I think she was as a niece. And that's Lauaki. It's another photo from the Tetens Collection. Lauaki on the left, and another orator. There were two key orators in the Parliament, and that was a guy called Tafua Fa'usu. Sure who the little fellow was, or a lovely little dog there too, of course. And that's a shot of Taisi Olaf Nelson on the right, standing in the doorway, with his father. Is it August Nelson standing in the middle, who married Samoa? And that's taken at Salfune. I'm pretty sure it's not taken in their shop at Apia. That was taken by Tetens during a visit he made to Savai in 1902, I'm pretty sure. And that's a wonderful photo of August Nelson. I don't know who the other guys are. Another photo he took of Malua of the Jubilee Hall. Very cool photo. But as I say, look, we've got 750 photos from this collection, and this is just a drop in the ocean.
Well, look at the details of the ceiling. Wow.
The design in the middle on the top of it, that's pretty nice though.
all that timber work. Sadly, look, the
Yeah.
church, the LMS church, or EFKS, they demolished that church some years ago, and because it wasn't big enough any longer for their annual conference or their annual get-together. So they did salvage some pieces of it for the new Jubilee Hall or a small Jubilee Hall. But I look, Samoans.
That's kind of sad, to be honest. Instead of preserving the history and have that just maintained and then build it somewhere else would have been nice, but sad to hear that they demolished it.
They did, I'm afraid, Kalani, but that's, yep, very, very sad. And look, this is a house that Mataafa Iosefo, who is standing on the right, had built for him, or he had it, or he built it himself on a hill behind Tuaefu at the back of Apia, on a hill called Fulau. And Tetens went up there and photographed it. And so that's him on the right, and family on the left. And you can see the view out to Apia from the top of Fulau. Can we have the next photo? So Tetens also photographed on the front porch of that house. That's on the veranda that faced Apia. Mataafa Iosefo and his niece, I think it is, and some children, the grandchildren perhaps, and a little German girl whose identity I've nearly got, but I can't quite get it. And so look,
she's the baby that was being cared for by the Asian lady.
No, it's not. It's another girl who appears in a few photos, and Mataafa Iosefo was said to be the godfather for this girl. And the Tetens, Christiani and Herwig Nickerman, said that people in Germany actually told them who this girl was, and it was their grandmother. But I couldn't get the name, unfortunately, but one day I hope to get the name of this little girl. But what happened was this house eventually disappeared off. When I posted these photos on Facebook a year or two ago, there was a thread of comments saying, hey, look, we know where that house was. In fact, those concrete steps are still there in the bush. We used to go up there picking berries. We used to go up there picking fruit many years ago. So I actually made contact with them, and I said to them, look, can you tell me where? Are there people there who know where the remnants of this house was? And they said yes. So I made contact with them, and last year, me and Ngalu Malemana, Stephen Percival, and some descendants of Mataafa Iosefo went back up Fulau, and so I sent you the photos
I've
of
seen it, yeah.
that expedition, and if you can put those up, we were very lucky. We headed off into the bush, and the gentleman on the left, who was a descendant of Iosefo's, was able to guide us up and describe how he used to come up that track behind us on horse and cart because he couldn't walk up the hill. And that track actually went pretty much all the way up to where the house was. And you'll see that on the next few photos, what's remaining. And there are some of the steps that were in the photo. And so they're still there. And it was a real buzz. There's a young woman who came up with those too. And steps and house foundations. And there were quite a few of these concrete steps and the foundations that were still there, along with some bottles that had been in use. And we found a clothes iron, a Auli Malala, up there. And it was a big house, as you can see from these concrete piles, concrete foundations. And it's a pity it wasn't preserved, but it's a pity with so many old wonderful structures that used to exist in Samoa, and a big tree growing through one of the stairways. And just another photo from the Tetens Collection. I wish we knew who this woman was. It looks like these are her kids. But I've been unable to establish her identity.
I love the way her kuinga looks. The simplicity is beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. These are authentic early Tuinga.
I was going to ask you what led you to want to know more about the culture, and you said that you're just glad that your dad didn't didn't share a lot
They
of
didn't
that.
talk about it. That's crazy.
So when was the first time you went back to Samoa and you were able to get yourself involved with the history?
Well, I went back in 1975 in my 20s and spent time with my aunt, Ardeli Brunt Meredith. And Auntie Ardeli was actually into history. She and her husband had actually set up a printing company called Samoan, I think it was Commercial Printers, along with their coconut cream factory. And so she was into history, and she had republished some good books from Samoan history. So Auntie really was into history, and I really credit her with helping sharpen my interest in Samoan history. And we also went round and spent time with my swanky family relatives in Malaila. And later, of course, I married a Samoan. And so, it's been a slow process of getting closer to the culture, getting more immersed in the culture since my 20s. And I got diverted onto other things, of course, over the years. So as I said earlier in the interview, really the in-depth thing began from that photo collection from my cousin Agnes Sase 20 years ago. So really, I've really spent a lot of time drilling down into that whole aspect of Samoan history. I'm not a mainstream historian. If anything, I'm a photographic historian. So, although I get tempted to do some heavy-hitting academic type history, I'm having an article come out in the Journal of Samoan Studies that National University of Samoa put out a couple of times a year. I've got a big article on the Cornwall property, historical property in Savaii coming out. But I tend not to become involved in mainstream, in-depth academic history. I mean, in part, and I shouldn't say this because a lot of it is become cliched narratives around anti-colonialism, decolonization, global warming, climate resilience. There's so much going on in that space that I'm not particularly into, and I'm more interested in mainstream photographic history and the captioning work and the research work that goes along with that. I mean, most historians use photographs as a sideline to illustrate their books, but the photographs are my main interest, and so I do the research on the photographs, and that's how I've become more au fait with Samoan history, by having to write the captions,
Yeah, I noticed that there's a lot of different interpretations of history, and it's pretty sad because not a lot of things were written by our own people, and so they were written by those who were foreigners through their lens. What stood out to you the most, to where a lot of people can interpret it to a degree where it's false narrative? What image stood out to you that caused a lot of controversial, to where you had to stand up for what was really truthful in that particular image?
Well, look, one of the most controversial and sensitive series of pictures that I had to deal with and get family sign-off before I displayed them were the images of Tamasese, who was killed on Black Friday in 1929, and a man called Alfred Smythe.
Also Polynesia. Oh, 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 shake, silent fever. Wave riders, lava rivers, no deceiver. Baseline thumping, sharp cuts like cleaver. Coconut shell drumming, heartbeats running, tiki torches burning, the night's